Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Withum's Power Platform Licensing Untangled. While we're waiting for everyone to get logged in, I would just like to go over a few housekeeping items so we can get started and get CPE for this event. First of all, this webinar is being recorded and the session will be 50 minutes. There will be a 10-minute Q&A session at the end, so we do encourage you to send in your questions using the chat. Please type your questions in the questions pane on the GoToWebinar panel. The slides and recording of this webinar will be emailed to you after the webinar. And with that, I would like to pass the phone over to Daniel Cohen-Dumani. Daniel?
Yes, hello, and welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Daniel Cohen-Dumani. I'm a partner here with Withum, in charge of our Withum Digital technology group. Withum Digital specializes in helping organizations with their journey to become a digital business. I have over 30 years of experience working with technology, digital technology, specifically with Office 365, SharePoint, Dynamics, and the Power Platform. I've always been very interested in the modern workplace and what people have called Work 2.0, and specifically nowadays with hybrid work and the new way of working, it's more prevalent than ever. A little fun fact about me, I mentioned I have SharePoint experience. I did started my career in the Microsoft world with SharePoint when nobody actually could spell it back in 2000. So that dates me a little bit. But I'm really excited to be here today and joined by my colleague, Andrea. Andrea, what do you tell us about yourself?
Thanks, Daniel. So I'm Andrea Mondello. I'm a manager here at Withum Digital and a Power Platform architect. And I have had the honor of helping thousands of people around the world adopt and get real business value from Office 365. As you see from the slide, I've done I've worked in many different verticals. That's been a wonderful part of my career. Like Daniel, I've been working with SharePoint since before it was called SharePoint. The fun fact about me is my first job title was camel handler at the Bronx Zoo. So sometimes I still think I handle camels, but not today. So back to you.
Different kinds of camels.
That's right.
And thank you for joining us, Andrea.
Thank you.
So what to expect from today's webinar? I think, we think a lot about the Power Platform as sort of the tool of the future, right? And when we say that, it's a magnificent platform that enable a lot of different scenarios. And Andrea is going to spend the first time of this webinar telling us about the fundamental. What is the Power Platform? Mm-hmm. Why is it prevalent for all of you in the audience today? And more importantly, we're going to finish with understanding the licensing. Unfortunately, as it's often the case with Microsoft, licensing is very complicated. I think we all need a PhD in licensing to understand it. And my goal and our goal, Andrea and I goals today, is to untangle it, make it easy to understand. We do have a guide and a blog that you'll get access to as well. Mm-hmm. And we'll finish with some real life example, right? And obviously, we'll be happy to answer questions. And if any of you wants to talk to us after this webinar, you'll get a link where you can book a meeting with the two of us, and we'll take your scenarios and try to make sense of it. So let's start with a few polls. We're curious in the audience if any of you is currently using the Power Platform. Are you here because you're using it, or you just want to learn more about the Power Platform because you're considering in the future? So the poll is open. Please give us your answers. Looks like the majority of the folks are actually using it, about 65-70% is coming in. So that's great. So some of you don't, and I think the first part of the webinar will be very insightful. For those of you who are using it, you're also going to learn a lot of new things that you probably don't know exist in the Power Platform. And for those of you using the platform today, tell us what you are using. Are you using Power Apps Canvas or Model Driven, or Power BI, Power Automate, or even Power Portal and Power Pages, which is the new term for the Power Portal? So let's see what's coming in. Looks like most of you are using Canvas, which, is not a surprise either, right? Power Canvas has been around for a while, Andrea, right? 4 or 5 years.
And Power BI coming in a close second there.
Yes. And Power BI is part of the Power Platform.
Yeah.
All right. So with that said, thanks
Good.
again for giving us your insight.
That helps
We are
us.
now going to talk about the Power Platform. So Andrea.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. That was good info. It's good to know what people are using and what they're not using. And I think even if you're using the Power Platform, we're going to have some ways of thinking about it that may be new to you today. So I'm excited about this. So let's go. So why would you use this Power Platform thing, right? From a very high level, especially if you are a business decision maker here today, why would you even want to think about this? So three big things. One is the Power Platform is an innovation platform. It allows everyone to innovate. Of course, you have to have the right security and guardrails, and those things now Microsoft has provided really great ways to put those in place. As long as you have that, you've got a great innovation engine that is safe. You can also rapidly build little lightweight business applications, right? And many organizations have a backlog of things that if they have a development department, they have a big backlog that their devs just are not able to get to. And this gives what we call citizen developers a way to create those and actually ends up reducing total cost of ownership. And the third big reason to use a Power Platform is to automate your business processes. And this is something we have so many clients coming to us about this, whether you're going to do workflows that trigger automatically when an event happens, or you're going to run a bot that actually can perform the work that a user might do, like click buttons on a web page or enter data into a legacy app. So these are the three big use cases. Next, Daniel. Thanks. Yeah. So of course there's surging demand. That's probably the reason you're here, right? So some folks are saying 750 million apps will be created in the next 5 years. Unbelievable. Not enough devs to do that. Over 85% of organizations struggle to analyze unstructured data. So unstructured data is the stuff that's in PDFs and Word docs, right? And a lot of your knowledge is there, but you don't know how to get it out. And 50% of work activities could be automated just using current technology. This isn't like Futurama stuff. So, yeah.
Those stats, Andrea, are amazing, right? So when we think about building 750 million apps, I don't think there are 750 million developers in the world today, right? So, that's a lot of apps, and some are mission critical application, right? And this platform allows to build, lightweight and highly mission critical application as well.
That's right. Good. Next. And, low code, obviously, a lot of organizations are working with low code. I mean, there's a lot of low code, no code out there. We're going to be telling you today why we believe that the Power Platform is the best end-to-end solution. But when we think about it, IT started generally adopting these sort of solutions, but now it's really moving beyond IT. So we're really getting to kind of, critical mass here. Next. Yeah, so now let's get specific about the Power Platform. So some of you may know about some of these. You may not know about all of them. One of the things that Daniel and I have found when we go to conferences and we talk to organizations, many organizations know about Power BI or they know about like Canvas apps and Power Apps, but they don't know all these other things. They had no idea. So there are 5 main tools: Power Apps for web and mobile dev, Power Automate for automation, right? Business process automation, Power Virtual Agents to create chatbots, conversation agents, things like that, Power Pages, and this is to build secure business websites that are data centric. It actually makes it easy to get your data from the inside to the outside and vice versa in a very secure way. And of course, Power BI, which a lot of folks know for data analysis and reporting. However, what many folks don't know are these 5 pillars on the bottom. Data connectors, and there's hundreds and hundreds of them. So again, even though everything we're talking about on this slide is Microsoft, these data connectors, most of them are connecting to things that are not Microsoft. Either kind of on-prem kind of things, or or hundreds of cloud services. Then we have AI Builder, and this is the artificial intelligence piece that lets you do things like analyze documents, analyze sentiment, pull data and text out of documents, classify things. We have Microsoft Dataverse, which I'm so glad it's right in the middle here because it is sort of the foundational piece for everything. And this gives you database capabilities without having to have a DBA. That's the main thing you need to know about this, but very secure. PowerFX, which is a development language, and then managed environments, which is fairly new for Microsoft. And this is just has to do, your IT department will love this, has to do with making sure that you can govern what's going on here as your citizen developers are, or your pro devs are developing.
Great. And Andrea, last time I checked, there was 837 data connectors available all over the place, right? So, and it's going. 3 years ago it was maybe 100, right? So it's going very, very quickly.
Exponential. Everyone wants to, be connected. Now, this slide is really kind of the money slide, and the reason is, you may have heard of, or even your organization may be using some other low-code, no-code tools. But the Power Platform is different. And the reason is because it's one platform that can do everything and already has a secure authentication and connections to your Microsoft 365 environment, to your Azure Active Directory, to your SharePoint, to your OneDrive, to your Azure SQL, everything, that's all integrated. So you've got one platform, as it says here, with unlimited innovation. The idea is you may start out with one little Power App, and then one maybe process automation, and then maybe you decide you want to do Power BI, or you add a little Dataverse. And basically the idea here is you can start small, but as you scale, everything is secure, everything is governable, and everything is connected. So this really is the money slide.
That's great. And when we think about the competitive market, Andrea, the closest one to this is Salesforce.com, obviously. They've been around for a long time. They have enabled this concept of low code. However, many of their capability are not as advanced as, what Microsoft has put together. And then, frankly, Microsoft had originally built separate product, and it's not until the last 2 years that they brought it back together and unified all of this into a unified low-code platform.
Yeah. Yep.
So let's delve into Power Apps.
Yeah, let's take a deep dive just into each of the five major tools. So what are Power Apps? Again, how would you use them? So you can extend the capabilities of your Office 365 M365 investment, or if you're using Dynamics 365, also extend those capabilities. You can either build lightweight or mission critical end-to-end solutions. So from the point of data capture to the point of reporting and data analysis, and everything in between can be done in the Power Platform. You can connect legacy apps and third-party apps. Power Platform is a brilliant way to put kind of a platform on top of other applications. Maybe you have some sort of application sprawl, right? And you have multiple types of apps that do the same thing, and you want to aggregate all that data and kind of surface it in one place. This is a great way to do it, or even interact with it all in one place. And of course, you can build more lightweight solutions for one department or one team. And there is a brilliant way via some of the tools Microsoft has put out to do self-service, right? To have users submit an idea and then have other users build it, and it's kind of this self-service kind of thing going on. So it's amazing. You can tell I'm excited.
And to add to that, I think, Andrea, some example of what we've seen our customer use innovative way to use Power Apps is a front end to other system. We had a client that felt like using Workday HR management system was too hard, and they wanted to give a small mobile app for people to update data in Workday. Perfect example. Some other companies said, we have this big Salesforce giant implementation. It's hard to customize. We want a form for people to capture information. Can we do it in the Power Platform? Absolutely. Can we aggregate data from Salesforce and SAP in Power BI? Absolutely, right? So all of that is this concept of innovating with point application to solve a business problem.
Yep. So yeah, and that's really what this slide really is showing, Daniel. You can either build standalone apps or extend other apps or connect to other data sources. So really good summary of what you just said, yeah. Okay, so Power Automate. Okay, very exciting. So what is Power Automate? What does it give you? So it gives you automation at scale. It doesn't matter whether you're doing one workflow that's going to serve, you, or you're automating a workflow for thousands of employees. You've got this automation at scale. Everything is integrated with your security, and you can monitor everything that's going on in your environment, see who's connecting to what. There's great reporting. Obviously, accelerated productivity, right? So the idea is not, I said before that some of these automations can replace what people do, but the idea is, of course, not to replace people. It's to let people move on to more strategic work, more interesting work, rather than just somebody kind of sitting, entering numbers into an application all day. So this really contributes to employee productivity, but it also contributes to employee happiness, right? Employee engagement. And then finally, you can now take advantage of these very powerful AI capabilities to do things like invoice automation. An invoice comes into an inbox, data is extracted from the invoice, it is entered into a financial system, and then from there the finance department can take care of it. But that initial kind of manual labor step is removed, and it just makes everybody a lot happier. So all right, next. Great. So that was Power Automate. Again, we're just scratching the surface here. So many of you clearly know about Power BI. And many people use Power BI as a reporting and analysis tool, a data visualization tool, but it can do a lot. If you really dig into what it can do, you can see that you can take data from many different places, combine it, do transformations. I mean, this is it's one end. When we talk about Power Apps, we talk about some of these other tools. Of course, these can all be integrated together, so you can have a Power BI dashboard inside a Power App, right? So there's so much you can do, right, Daniel?
Absolutely, yeah. And Power BI has been around. Power BI has been around for a very long time.
Yes.
Many of our clients have been using it for over 7 years now.
Yeah.
Obviously, the service has improved and is now the leading dashboarding data analytics platform in the world, right? And for good reason, it has a very rich feature set.
Yep. And the natural language, queries are so good. And that's all part of that AI builder behind the scenes. So now let's talk about Dataverse. You heard me going on about this before. So Dataverse, think of it as a database that allows you to securely store and manage data that's used in apps. Whether you have extra Dataverse capacity, and Daniel will talk about this later, or not, you always have Dataverse behind the scenes because all of the information about your Power Apps and about your Power Automate flows, all of that is actually being stored in Dataverse, but you could do so much more. So either you can store new data there, newly created data, or like we do for many of our clients, we import a subset of data from other systems like a Salesforce or a NetSuite or whatever it happens to be, and you import that data into Dataverse for further transformation or to use in some other process. And so obviously the people who are using that data don't have to have the license to the other thing. So that's also very helpful. Role-based security, yeah. So whenever you need a secure database without a DBA, you want to use Dataverse. It's really amazing. When you need granular role level, field level, or hierarchy-based security. So how many times, Daniel, has a client come to us and said, well, the way this should work is, the manager should be able to see this record, the employee should see it, and their manager and their manager's manager, and all the way up the chain, right? How many times is that? And that is literally impossible to do in SharePoint. It's very difficult to do if you're doing some other data.
Any data source, right? If
Yeah.
you see database or
You could use, yep.
any other data source that you can imagine, it's really hard to implement this hierarchical security or even field level security.
Yep.
Right? So,
Yep.
Dataverse actually, Andrew, as we know, as we all know, have been around for a very long time.
Yes.
It's new as a term. I think it's about 2 years old that Microsoft named it Dataverse. It was previously known as the Common Data Services.
Mm-hmm.
But, some of you may not know, Dataverse is the backend that Microsoft Dynamics have been using for 18 years or 15 years now, right? Yeah. So it's a proven backend. It's highly scalable, can scale to millions and billions of records.
Yep.
And it's a cloud database, right? Database in the cloud, easy to use, no technical knowledge needed, easy to back up and restore and do all the things that people expect. It's a great choice for rapidly building application.
Right. Exactly. So yes, good. So let's move on to AI Builder and Power Virtual Agents. Let's have a look at these two superstars here. So what do the Power Virtual Agents do? So the big benefit here is you don't need to be a coder to set up these virtual agents. So a subject matter expert in an area can actually create these agents. And you may think, well, we don't need, our customers to talk to people with this, and what use would I have for that? But actually, internally, these are used internally in organizations very successfully. So even if you don't have a retail use, you should still take a look at Power Virtual Agents. Think about, if you're in HR, think about how many times you get the same question. When does open enrollment start? When does open enrollment end, right? You can have all those questions, those sorts of things, or IT questions. The simple IT questions. How do I reset my password? You can have a virtual agent help people reset their password with a Power Automate flow in the background that does it for them. I mean, it's just amazing. So this is all about enabling your subject matter experts and not needing developers.
Next. That's great. And I always think about virtual agent as a different user interface, right? So we're all used to going to a website or mobile apps and typing things, searching for things. Virtual agent is just a different user interface. People are getting used to talking with an agent, and really can streamline sort of your communication and reduce the impact you have on asking questions, right? And this is done with no code, easy to put in, and it has AI behind the scene, of course, that makes it easy to use and easy to understand.
Yep. And now, of course, as we mentioned, on top of all the automation you can do, you can use the power of artificial intelligence. So again, no coding needed. There are some predefined models. For instance, Microsoft has, clearly invoices are a thing that, every business has. And invoices generally have a standard format. So Microsoft already has predefined invoice ingestion models that you can use, things like that, contracts, invoices, the common kind of things. Or you can create your own model. So you can say, well, we have this kind of form that we use in my company, and when this form is filled out and uploaded to, Box or SharePoint or wherever you upload it to, ingest that, pull out this data, and do something else with that data, right? Amazing. And of course, this is already integrated with Power Apps and Power Automate. So there are all these hooks and connectors and actions that are already pre-built. You don't need to do them. So really, you can get started with AI quite easily, a lot simpler than you might imagine, Daniel.
Yeah, and we've seen our clients do amazing things, and obviously we provided some insight to them. And invoice automation for accounts payable, the ability to centralize the ingestion of invoices, automatically read them, extract the information, send it to the proper people for approval without manual intervention. Mm-hmm. We have clients that deal with contracts. And contract is a unstructured document, right? It doesn't follow in structure. yet an AI model can read the contract
Right.
and extract the most important terms so that you can load all of your contract in a database and extract, start and expiration date and terms and etc. Right? So those are examples. We have had clients that needed to detect images, right? Extract object out of an image to see what kind of image it is, right? All of those things can be done, and as Andrea said, your imagination can drive you and think about all the things you can do with this platform.
So now we have Power Pages. So this is the newest member of the Power Platform family. And basically what this allows you to do is create, a public website, which is, very low code, very easy to create. Now you may say, well, there's a million website creation platforms out there. Why do I need this? So the reason you need this is because you're a business. You have Office 365. You already have your security all set up, your organization, authorization, all these kinds of things. You have your data, you already have your data stores, everything's protected. But you want to interact with, say, maybe you're a local government that wants to interact with constituents, and you want constituents to maybe fill out a form, and you save that form in your data store, or you're a nonprofit and you want to engage with volunteers, right? And you want the interactions between you and your volunteers to remain secure. That's what Power Platform is brilliant at. So you can have back-end processes, back-end data that then limited sets of it can get surfaced through Power Pages, or you can have folks who come to this website, say maybe a vendor, they need to submit, certain documentation each year to continue to be a vendor with you, and you can have that done through, securely with a login, and then that data can then go either directly into your data stores or can be put in a place to be, processed or reviewed before it does. But this is what's brilliant. Is you don't have to reinvent the wheel to make that connection between the back end and the public site. It's already done for you, Daniel. So, and I know there's a lot happening here.
Absolutely, and Power Pages is not new. It used to be called the Power Apps Portal, and previously the Dynamics Portal. Been around for almost 7-8 years now. What's new, and since October 1st of 2022, the licensing have been adjusted, and I'll talk to that in a moment, to make this platform affordable. Frankly, before it was not. We were not pushing it. It was only working a few use cases. The price has gone down 100 times, right? And I think we now have the ability to leverage this platform for anything extranet, right? An extranet scenario, anything that data-centric, that touch data in your organization that you want to have people outside can now be used. So we're very excited about the opportunity, and that's brand new, right? The product is not new, the branding is new, Power Pages, but it's been around and used by millions of people worldwide.
And Daniel, I do want to also add that there is, although we're talking that this is low code, there is support for any development technology you want to use. So if you have pro devs, they can develop on this platform too. So it's not just low code. You can do all
across
kinds
the entire Power Platform, and that's true across the entire Power Platform. There's what 2 years ago Microsoft was really positioning it for non-developers only, business user, and now can span citizen developer, non-business user, non-developers, as well as developers and technical team together working jointly to deliver great innovation in your organization. All right, so with this great introduction, thank you, Andrea. Let's chime into a very complex subject, and I'll try in the next 30 minutes to untangle what this is all about. So licensing, as many of you know in the Microsoft platform, is very complicated. Office 365 licensing is complicated. I always wonder why is Microsoft making it so complicated, right? But that's a different topic of discussion. Now, many of you may have come to us, or many clients come to us and say, well, I have Office 365. What can I do everything I want with the Power Platform? And the answer is you can. You can do some of it. you are granted some capability from a Power Apps and Power Automate standpoint in a world that's called seeded. And what seeded means is, from a history standpoint, Microsoft built this Power Platform, and then they joined hip with Office 365 and say, we're going to give a great taste of what the capability is to everyone in Office 365, and we're going to seed some licenses, right? So you get Power Apps, Canvas, use rights in Office 365 with the standard connector. That's really the basis of it. Anything using standard connector from Power Apps and Power Automate can be used in Office 365 at no cost. That is, of those 830 plus connectors, there's only maybe 20 or 30 that are standard. That includes SharePoint, Excel, OneDrive, and a few others, right? But if you have a simple application that goes to a SharePoint list and present things in a Power Apps and then run a workflow, you can do it within Office 365, right? Because you get this seeded capability. You also get seeded capability of Dataverse inside of Teams, called Dataverse for Teams. Again, think about it as everything that's seeded is a scaled-down version with limitation of the full product. That's why Microsoft is giving it away for free. Lastly, there's also a Power Virtual Agent for Teams that is seeded with standard connector inside of Microsoft Teams. And in most cases, our clients have used SharePoint List, Microsoft List as the backend for data. And by the way, we have built a very rich, complex application. We had a nonprofit that needed a contract management database system, and we use SharePoint and Power Apps Canvas to build it. So you can build mission-critical apps using that platform, even if it's free. If you're using Microsoft Office 365 E5 or Microsoft 365 E5, you also are granted Power BI Professional. So in one slide, I summarize everything that you get with Office 365. So if you're ever in a doubt, reach out to us. We'll help you uncover what do you get outside of the box if you're an Office 365 user, and what can you do with it. Next is Power BI licensing. And I'll start with this one because Power BI is probably the simplest licensing of the entire suite. Everything else gets complicated. Power BI is very streamlined and easy to understand. There's 3 editions: free, professional, and premium. So the free version allows you to use the Power BI desktop, create a dashboard for yourself, connecting to any data set you can ever imagine. And as long as you use it for yourself or embed it into Dataverse for Teams, you can use it as you want, right? So it's limited, of course, because you don't share it with a lot of people, right? So, it has limited usage, but that's how people start. They created a Power BI desktop for them. They get the sense of the capability, and therefore will use it for themselves. Professional is the next level. The professional edition is licensed per user for every user consuming a Power BI report. That allows a person that's created a Power BI dashboard using the desktop version to publish it to the service and share it to every licensed user. Retail price, unless you are on E5, is $10 per user per month. So fairly standard, easy to use. If you have 100 users, it's going to cost you $1,000 roughly a month. You have scalable service, and you can deploy all of those things to your entire organization. If you need more capacity, you have more advanced needs, and of course, there's some differences between what you get with premium and professional. You can go premium, which is the step up, the higher step of Power BI. Per user per month is at $20. It's only an increment on 10 if you're on E5. And, when you think about the use case, there's a break-even point, right? Because the starting premium is either $20 per user, or you can do it for your entire tenant for $4,900 a month, roughly, right? So when you think if you have more than 500 users that you want using your Power BI dashboard, you can go the route of the premium tenant at $5,000 a month. That's sort of the break-even at about 500 users. Again, we have many clients of ours that, for instance, have created Power BI dashboard that they share with their customers. And they may have, thousands of users, right? It will be inappropriate to license that per user for your external customers, and in that case, you can use the Power BI premium capacity-based licensing, which is starting at $4,900 a month. We have companies that are embedded Power BI into a commercial product, and that's how they do it using that particular licensing. So that's all about Power BI. Let's now go into the Power Apps. So the use case, you want to build application. How do you license Power Apps? And remember, you have the seeded version with Office 365. Now we're getting a step up. You need more. You need premium connector. You need to store data in Dataverse. Power Apps come into two different modes, Canvas and model-driven. And by the way, those are converging. They are converging. Probably a couple of years from now, they'll be just Power Apps, right? In one matter, if you Canvas and model-driven, they are converging. Model-driven is what Dynamics was built on. Canvas is that free form where you can build web and mobile application. In most cases, our clients use both. And we talk about the portal and the pages, which is the third options for Power Apps. So how do you license Power Apps? There are two distinct modes. Actually, there's three, because one new came out this summer. The first one is per app. And that's a good way to start. Let's say that you have an application you want to build. You need a cloud database like Dataverse. And you want to build it and deploy it, right? And what you can do is leverage the per app plan. You're paying a fee on a per app per user per month. So if you have 10 users, the retail price is $5 per user per app. It's going to cost you $50, and you'll be able to get access to up to 50 people to that application. If you need more, you can add 1 at a time, 10 at a time. Again, those licenses get consumed as people get into the application. This allows to gives you a capacity in your cloud database. That's important. That's how you get Dataverse access is for a Power Apps license. They're going to tell me at $5, what if I have 10 apps, right? The cost keeps going. So Microsoft said, we have cases where company will have a few apps that a few users use, but they have an app that everybody needs to use, right? In that case, you can leverage the per user plan, which is $20 per user per month. Many of you on this call may have enterprise agreement with Microsoft, and Microsoft will heavily discount those retail pricing. If you're a nonprofit, the price is roughly about a fourth of this. There's an offer here for nonprofit at $2.4 per user per month for 2 apps, right? So you'll see that qualified nonprofit gets a very, very heavy discount. Now, Microsoft came in and said, there's a third use case. What if a company has an app that's used occasionally, right? And maybe we have 1,000 users in our organization, but we think that people will only use it about 100 times a month, right? 100 users a month. You can use it as a pay-as-you-go plan. You see that the pricing is in between, right? It's between 5 and 20. It's $20 per user actively using the application. Now, don't ask me what actively means. It means that you at least log in 2 or 3 times a month. There's a paragraph in the 40-plus pages licensing guide that explain what actively means.
Daniel, you said 20. You mean 10 for this?
$10 per user per month. Yes, sorry. Yeah.
Not to be confused.
$10 per user per month is the pay-as-you-go. 20 is the per user. Thank you for clarification, Andrew. But in that case, if you have an application that's not widely used, that you think you're going to have between 50 and 100 users, you a pay-as-you-go plan. It's meter, right? So the more people you use, the more you pay. The less people that use it this month, the less you pay, right? So there are great use cases, usually for very large organizations that have a few users, or some that want to start with this. Now, what's interesting is you can combine all of those models together in your organization, right? So depending on your application, what it's doing, you can pick and choose. And obviously, we've done modeling with many of our clients about what's the best way to do it. It's complicated. The good news is there's a lot of options. Last point I want to make about Power Apps licensing, it has gone down 4 times in the last 5 years. The Power Apps per user plan used to be $50 per user per month. So you've seen that the price has gone down tremendously over the last 5 years, and Microsoft had changed it. Again, we believe they put it at a price point that's very reasonable in the marketplace. And since the change at $5 per user per app per month, it has increased the adoption 1,000 times, right? Because it's very affordable.
Daniel, I have a question that came in. So if we could just answer that if you have time. So the question is basically saying, I don't understand when I need. You said that there are things that are seeded, and it seems like I get what I need, but now you're saying this other thing. I'm not sure how do I know I need this extra licensing?
If you need Dataverse, for sure, yeah. So if you need to use a premium connector,
right?
Build an app needs to connect to some data, right? That's the purpose of an app. It treats data and manage data. Right. If you need to use a premium connector, you need a Power Apps additional license, so premium license. That's on the screen right now. That's really the trigger, standard versus premium connector.
Okay. Or if I want to use Dataverse.
Or if you want to use Dataverse, the only way to get access to Dataverse, unless you're licensed already for other means, is to buy a Power Apps license.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good. I think that answered the question. Yeah.
Or Power Automate license. Any premium license you buy, usually of the Power Platform, will give you some Dataverse capacity.
Good.
Now, let's move on to the Power Apps licensing. Like Power Apps, you get a seeded version. If you need a premium connector, you need to license it. They are, like Power Apps, 3 model. Actually, more than that. Why? Because Power Automate not only have this concept of a flow running in the background, there's also this new addition called robotic process automation, which adds complexity to the licensing. Anyway, if you have a flow that is connecting to Salesforce and said, whenever someone updates something in Salesforce, send me an email or do something, right? That is a premium connector. The cost is roughly about $15 per user per month, right? And that is the per user licensing. Very few of our clients use the per user licensing, right? In this case, if only one user use it, that's okay. You'll do it in the context of one user. Pay as you go is a brand new model that was introduced in the summer of 2022, which allow you to meter the usage of the flow. And that's very powerful because you don't license it per user. If you have a flow that you know is running twice a day, you can easily say, okay, it's going to cost me about, 60 cents per run. It's running, a couple times a day. Let's call it $1 a day. For $360 a day, a year, I can run that flow with Premium Connector, right? And that's a new powerful way to do it. Now, the challenge with pay as you go is it's meter. You have to be careful, right? Because if the flow keeps running, if you have a bug in the flow and it keeps going in a loop, you're going to be charged every time, right? So be very careful with that model, but very powerful. Microsoft, about 2 years ago, purchased and acquired a firm called Win Automation, which has a robotic client-side desktop automation solution called Power Automate Desktop. And this allows you to automate things on your desktop, run in your behalf, some operation, log into a website and download some things and process some things, right? If you want to run those unattended, it's going to cost you between $40 to about $15 a month. There's a promotion going on, and those flow could run in the cloud for yourself. So, for instance, an example of one thing we've done, we had a use case with a client where we had an individual going every day, checking your email, extracting a document, going to SAP and loading that document by hand, right? That can be automated with Power Automate Desktop. And if it's running in the background, not attended on your computer, then you have to pay a special license for that. Now, when you purchase Power Automate, it's often the case to use Power Automate. When you purchase Power Apps, when you build an application, there's often the need for a flow and automation behind the scene. The good news is when you buy Power Apps, you automatically get seeded and access to Power Automate behind the scene. You don't need to license both, right? So if you have an application that's interacting with your data and you're using Power Automate to do some work and manage some process in the background, that application does not need a specific other license to run Power Automate. You're already licensed because it's running from your app. You're already licensed for Power Automate. There's also an alternative. We work with a lot of clients that wants to do automation and thought the licensing of Power Automate was prohibitive for a process that's running not often. So Microsoft has an equivalent in Azure called Logic Apps, which is the exact same technology. You can export a Power Automate flow, put in Logic Apps, and in that case, you are metered from an Azure standpoint, which is roughly a tenth of a penny per action, or something like that. So the cost can be very inexpensive to move that into the Azure platform, right? So that's something that we've helped a lot of clients with. All right, so we talk about Power Apps, Power BI, Power Automate. Now, how about Power Pages, right? Power Pages is the use case of using external or building external-facing websites or extranets or customer self-service or vendor portals and things like that, right? There are two modes to license Power Pages: anonymous and authenticated. You may have a website that people just consume data. They can search, they can find knowledge-based articles, but they're not logging into the site. In that case, the price point is now $75 a month for 500 users, roughly. It goes as low as $18 for 500 for large discount. If you have 10,000 visitors a month, obviously the price will go up. But as you see, this includes all the hosting of your website. Everything: hosting, scalability, automatic, scalability to support millions of users a month. It's all included, right? Mostly for sites where people don't log in or interact with. If you need to authenticate your user, and obviously you can mix and match the two, you have to buy a per authenticated user license. It starts at $2 per user per month. So if you have a website where you got about 1,000, let's say 100 people logging into the website a month, that's roughly going to be about $200 a month, right? And that will allow you to authenticate your user, log into the system, interact, publish save a form or fill a form or submit a case, do whatever you need to do from a portal perspective, right? And that price go as low as 50 cents for large sites, and nonprofit starting point is, that's what we're excited about, it starts at about 50 cents per user per month. So think about the scope of the opportunity here. You can extend your application to the site, create customer-facing portals, extranet, vendor portal, constituent portals, stakeholders portals, and use the Power Platform low-code to build those.
Daniel, maybe question.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think it's important. The question is, when you talk about authenticated users, does that mean the users have to have, the person is saying, does that user have to have an account in that organization's AD? How does that work?
Not specifically. We can federate with external authentication system like LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or Google or Amazon, whichever you want, right? So yes, so it doesn't have to be logged into your organization. Obviously, when you do portals, the best practice is to make it as easy as possible for people to log in. And leveraging social or commercial authentication is the best way to go. Great question.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Now, the last use case, when you build those portal, what if my internal user needs to interact with this portal? Well, if they have a Power Apps license, they are included, right? So if you log in as a organization account into the portal, assuming you had a Power Apps license, you can log in into an external portal. Let's move on now to the virtual agent. Virtual agent is simpler from a licensing standpoint. If you're using Teams and you want to build a simple virtual agent, you can do it inside of Teams with roughly a limit of about 2,000 sessions per tenant per month, right? So as you can see, like always, Microsoft gives you seeded capability, but there's a limit. You can't do everything, right? So if you have a small virtual agent, you're hosting it in Teams, you can do it at no cost. Otherwise, if you have internally or externally facing bots, the starting points, and there's a lot of caveats to that and discount, start about $1,000 per month, right, for 2,000 sessions. That price is actually going down. Microsoft will announce some changes in the near future as well. How about AI Builder? And like Andrea mentioned, AI Builder is the backend component for infusing AI into your application or your processes. It's a great service that integrates with either Power Apps, Power Automate, Virtual Agent, or any of those other systems. AI Builder comes included with some of the services, right? SharePoint Syntax, Dynamics, some of the Power Apps units have AI Builder services included. It's not uncommon that we walk into an organization and look at their tenant and say, oh, did you know that you have been granted some AI Builder credit on a monthly basis, right? Some people get up to 5,000 service credit. A service credit is a consumption of an AI action, right? And those are meters too, right? So to give you an example here, if you need extra capacity for 1 million of usage a month, it's slightly about $500 per month for 1 million of credit of AI Builder, right? Again, if you build solution on SharePoint Syntax, which leverage AI Builder, you will get pre-built credits. How about Dataverse, right? We've talked about Dataverse, Dataverse being this amazing cloud database, right? There is no pricing separately for Dataverse. It does not exist. The only thing that exists is additional capacity. So how do you license Dataverse? If you do it inside of Teams, you get a light version of Dataverse inside of Teams, right? At no cost. You can build simple apps inside of Teams, and you can leverage Dataverse. If you need more capacity, or you want to run it outside of Teams, connect with the other backend, you have to buy a Power Apps per app per user, Dynamics, or Power Apps Portal or Power Automate. Any Power Apps Portal, Automate, or Pages product will give you capacity to Dataverse. The capacity is pooled on your tenant. It depends on how many users you build. I'm not going to have time to go to the detail, but it's very well specific, right? In most cases, you're going to get a few gigabytes when you get started, and then if you need more, then you can add on capacity, right? Now, a lot of people compare Dataverse cost with a SQL Server. It's a lot more expensive. Why? Because it is a managed cloud database. You don't have to manage anything. It does continuous backup for you. You can restore at any time the data if you needed to. You can move data from a production to development environment. All of that is managed 100% with Microsoft with a 99.99% SLA, right? So the price per gigabyte is a lot higher than it will be if you were to use a SQL database, right? But we believe if you want to do low code and innovate rapidly, that's definitely the way to go. Last thing about licensing, and then we're going into some specific example. If you are using Dynamics, you automatically is granted access to the Power Platform, right? So that's it's sort of a common use case, right? If you're using Dynamics CRM or sales or customer engagement or customer service or field service or business central, this comes with capacity to use Dataverse and to develop modules, application, mobile apps using the Power Apps platform. Okay, so let's look at some example. So example one is we have a dashboard with internal use for less than 500 users, right? And we've talked about how to do it. That's roughly pretty straightforward. You have a dashboard, 450 users. It's published in a Power BI service. It's going to roughly cost you about $4,500 a month. Now, the fun story about Power BI, most of our clients that are using Microsoft or Office 365 E5 gets access to Power BI, right? So it's not unlikely that your organization is probably already licensed, you don't know about it, or that you can gain access to it. If you get above 1,000 users, or actually 500 users, in our case 1,000, you can go and use the premium capacity, which is a fixed monthly fee a month. So use case one, pretty straightforward. Now let's take a more complex example. We have a large-scale application 1,000 sales manager and employee, 300 warehouse manager, employee, and vendors outside, and 500 people in the office, right? Now, you'll see in that slide, the folks in the office are the only one using Power BI, right? The folks in the office are also using Dataverse, right? In the warehouse, they're using Power Pages, Power Apps, and virtual agents. And then the sales manager are using an application built with SharePoint, right? And that one, hey, guess what? It's seated, costs nothing. It's included if you're on Office 365. The middle section, well, you have to license virtual agent, Power Apps, and Power Pages. And then the final one for the headquarters in the office, you have to license Power Apps and Power BI for them to be able to use it, right? So again, this is a creative way to leverage a free version along in the same application. Of course, there's data movement happening, right? The same application by different type of people, slicing and dicing different licensing capability. So the use case 3 is there's a need to manage a campaign tool, and you can use Dataverse for Teams, right? So if you use Microsoft Teams, you have this lightweight version of Dataverse, comes at no cost, and you can build very interesting application. At Witham, for instance, we had a need to build a conflict independence tracking application. We're part of a large accounting firm, and as you know, we are very serious about ensuring we don't have conflict of interest. And we needed an application to track that, right? So we have roughly about 2,000 people. That application, we built it in Dataverse for Teams, pushed it inside of Teams, so it's being launched from a Microsoft Teams channel, and people can use it. It's using a very secure database. Only, you can see your own conflicts, right? But the admin can see it, everything. And that's built, and it costs no additional licensing costs, right? So that's great use case. We see a lot of organizations building point application, and Dataverse for Teams is a great way to do it. All right, so the fourth use case here is the case of a self-service portal. And this is accounting for the new pricing that was made available October 1st of 2022. So the use case is an externally facing website for your vendor to come into your organization and self-serve their needs. For instance, they can upload a document, fill out forms, be in compliance, etc., right? So in that case, we assume that we have up to 200 vendors, but they're not all going to log in every month. Maybe half of them will log in on a monthly basis. So to account for those external vendors, you're going to buy one pack of 100 users per site per month, and it roughly costs about $200 a month. That's for hosting the website and the backend to support access to and authenticating into this website. You also have 10 users internally that's going to log in the backend of this portal and maybe interact with your vendors, right? And those will need a per app pass because it's using Power Apps, and it's $5 per user per month. With that, you'll get extra capacity in Dataverse, 2 GB plus 50 meg per user, roughly about 2.25 gigabyte. And the total cost for this externally facing vendor portal will be $250 a month. And that includes all hosting, all the capacity, monitoring of the site, everything that's needed to run that portal. So as you can see here that the pricing with this new model of Power Apps pages has been reduced significantly, especially if you knew about the previous Dynamics portal, which were very, very expensive, roughly about 4 or 5 times more on a monthly basis. So with the introduction of this new pricing for Power Apps pages, we see tremendous amount of opportunity to build customer and externally facing portals. So here's in a snapshot. What we try to do is give you an insight about licensing of the Microsoft Power Platform. So the key takeaway from today's webinar, the Power Platform has a great deal of features, a great deal of benefits, and truly enable agile business process, get inside in your data, and enable this concept of low-code 3.0, which is innovated at the speed of sound, building application that you can build in a month, launch it, and you know what? If you only use it for a year, you didn't spend a lot of money building that out, right? Now, the big things we tell everyone using the Power Platform, make sure you understand licensing before you get started. Otherwise, you're going to build an application, deploy it, and then be faced with this daunting task of one, understanding it, and maybe not able to derive ROI because you use the wrong technology or you use a component of the platform that is costing, more than you expected to, right? Microsoft up to October of 2022 was not enforcing fully the compliance of licensing. It started on October 1st, 2022, and see that Microsoft will start enforcing capacity, API limits, storage, how many people are actually using it. They were very, giving a lot of leeway for the last 3 years, but now they're starting this enforcement. So be in mind and be mindful of those possible challenges. Great. So I think we have now time with questions.
Is the presentation going to be available after this?
Absolutely. The recording and the presentation and a link to book a meeting with us will be available.
Great. Just looking here. If I'm just making sure I understand the question. If somebody already has the old version of Power Pages, do they have to do something? Like what's going to happen to their old Power Pages?
They will need to, if they have the current license, they're going to have to purchase a new one and transition to that. Yes.
Okay. So there's some licensing they need to do. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
But do they have to change the site or anything like that?
Yeah.
Or it's all the same data?
No. It's carrying over.
Right. Okay. So just licensing.
Thank you very much for joining us at today's presentation of A Comprehensive Guide to Power Platform Licensing with Daniel Cohen-Damani and Andrea Mondello. We hope that you found this helpful, and we hope to see you at a presentation soon.